But I think that's what happened in 2007, 2008. There were all these agenda items to be done,
which were
not done, and
yes.
so that never didn't sort out the problem. So historical injustices were never addressed.
Agenda item number 4 has to be of that agreement has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Historical injustices, land issues, question of resources, and many other things. And the perceptions some have against the others. I think there has to be a level of saying that you're putting everything on the table. There's no issue bigger than this country. Let's put them on the table and let's discuss them.
And I think for both the political leaders, I think the president and Raila Odinga, it's legacy as well. So I think if their only legacy is to heal the nation, then then they will go down in history.
Yeah, and that's the best gift they can give to this nation today.
Absolutely.
I mean, what better legacy would President Uhuru have than him and Raila agreeing, and Ruto and Musalia and everybody saying, okay, look, our egos aside, our interests aside, boom, Kenya #1. We all agree that's the bottom line, and let's agree.
And at the end of the day, they've all worked together before anyway. It's not,
sure.
it's
they're friends.
And they're friends.
At the end of the day, they're all friends.
Yeah.
It's only us as citizenry that we get caught up to think they're against one another or they hate one another. They're politicians anyway at the end of the day.
Exactly.
They can agree to disagree, but as they say, there are no permanent enemies or friends among politicians.
Well, I think there's I hope that what we're seeing is a serious commitment, to ensure that there is meaningful dialogues, and I really pray for 2018 that we see that happen.
The sooner, the better. But I guess sometimes we like as Kenyans to lump everything also fairly or unfairly on the poor politician and the leadership. But I think for me, leadership is all of us in our own way, in our own little organization.
Yeah.
And I say for me, Kenya Red Cross, I remember President Kibaki, when he came twice to open the 2 Boma hotels, he was saying, Vision 2030 is just not the government, it's all of us in our institution, in our organization, in our environment to be part and parcel of it. So if the government has set the agenda, this Vision 2030, we want to be there, how do we all in our various organizations work hard to get there?
But I think the problem is that we're just so used to only looking at leadership as political leadership.
Unfortunately.
And then we put so much hope and faith on the man in the big office. And then, there's no way that they can meet the expectations of all Kenyans. So, we put so much focus on the president, and then we feel let down. But I think if we start looking at leadership as you and I, and everybody that's, in a position to impact or influence, then I think it would just be a much more evenly spread.
Precisely. And that's what it should be. And we should all be role models in our own respective organization in that way. And then you can challenge upwards in that way to really take it from the bottom. But we're all waiting for it to come from there down to us, and it will not come.
No, it definitely, and then we'll be disappointed.
Yeah. So I hope and pray 2018 would be a better year, at least politically, economically, socially. The rains, I hope the rains also come, but again, is how do we manage our resources? For me, I would rather be in the space of food security and water long term than to be in aid, because aid is not the solution. 54 years of independence, we can't have, whether it's 1/5 or 1/10 or 1/100th of our population, even one Kenya to be on food handouts.
No, absolutely, we can't, and we shouldn't, we really shouldn't. But Abbas, we're talking about youth and radicalization. What really inspires me is sometimes the youth are so maligned in terms of them feeling, we keep talking about them being entitled, lazy, whatever, and yet the volunteer core of the Red Cross is mainly youth.
For sure.
I think, you talk about role modeling, I think it's just once they join the Red Cross, their whole kind of attitude changes and everything, and they, that stops them from doing things that they might have done otherwise.
For sure, and the whole idea, Gina, of institutions like the Red Cross, the YMCAs in the olden days, the YWCAs, the Scouts, all these movements, even in the churches they have these guilds, and I don't know whatever it is called. The idea was to character mold young people.
Exactly.
From primary school to high school to college to even early young adult working life, to join this institution, to be part and parcel of them, to teach you, to mentor you. I remember my days in Red Cross from when I was in Form 1 in school. I had to go and I was doing the President Award scheme in this country. In UK, it's called the Duke of Edinburgh. Kids from 15 to 24 do that. So to join the President Award scheme, you had to learn first aid. So at the time, they say first aid, you could either go to Red Cross or St. John's. And that's my association with Red Cross from 1973 to today. So going to learn first aid in the Red Cross as a mandatory for me to get my bronze medal. Then you do community service, you do many other things. But after doing my initial first aid, then the teacher then who was teaching us, then our trainer said, look, you could do a second level of intermediate, you could do advanced. If you do intermediate, then there was an enticement, you can join the Red Cross youth group that was in Mombasa, right? So of course for me it was an attraction, and you know, the local Red Cross branch was very close to where I lived in Mombasa. So I went to do my intermediate course, and from there on it was fun to go out every weekend, every national holiday. You're on a first aid, providing first aid service. You had this uniform, and you know, it was a thing to go out.
Sense of pride, yeah.
Yeah, a sense of pride, and you had all these boys and girls. And I remember my first trip outside this country, going to Germany way back in '77 as a youth. But you know what we had to do? We were going on an exchange trip with a Red Cross club in Germany, a place called Koblenz, that helped us to build the local branch in Mombasa. But for us then to raise, we had to raise our money to even get our pocket money to go on that trip. So we organized a cycling trip between Mombasa and Malindi. It's 120 kilometers one way.
Wow.
So return 240. At that time, someone would sponsor you a penny, you know, 10 cents. If they gave you a shilling, this was a rich person. 240 bob, my God, you know, you would do anything for 240 bob. So we left Mombasa like 1 in the morning on a Friday night. Our then chairman, Mr. Mol, was, you know, passed away some 2 years ago.
Yes.
He organized with us, with the tour company, Neckerman Tui.
Yes,
Tui,
Neckerman.
Yeah, Neckerman and Rise and Tour. So they had these chartered flights coming from Germany to Mombasa, and then direct. Now, to even get a permission to fly on that plane, you had to go to civil aviation for them to give you authority.
They normally only take the charter.
The charter, yeah. So he got us ticket that way. Then he said, you have to cycle to get your pocket money. So we cycle, I mean, 10 of us, you know. And I remember going to Lawford's Hotel in Malindi, then when he was still alive and active, you know, in '77 on a Saturday night, then coming back the same Saturday to Mombasa. I mean, it was fun because it kept you out of mischief. It's not to say there were no drugs or there were no social challenges even then. There were, but at a different level. Population was much more smaller, country was in that way much easier. But, you know, we had to every Saturday, every weekend, and every national day, every sporting activity will be invited. Red Cross will be told to provide first aid. So we will go. And we just used to go through matatus or public buses with our equipment, and we were very proud about it, you know, because it kept you out of mischief. Now today with the youth, it's a different ball game, but still, institutions like the Red Cross can and should mentor them. And this is what we are doing in the Red Cross today. Because there are lots of activities we can do with these young people to teach them, to mentor them, to use also their experience and their knowledge.
Yeah, because I remember when we had the Youth Day earlier this year, and it was just interesting to hear their stories and from youth from all over the country.
Yeah.
And also when we went to Abidjan for which was really interesting, and the youth there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But you know, the youth of the Red Cross are just actually inspiring. I mean, I was talking to the team earlier about the youth that were involved in Ebola.
Yes.
And the number of youth that actually lost
their lives, for sure,
you know.
For sure. Even here, young people are always the first on the line. But that's why I'm happy also for Kenya Red Cross. We value our volunteers. So I think we're probably the only society in the world that have an annual volunteer awards. So we do this award just to recognize them. And the awards, the two highest one is named after a young person, and the bigger one is named after Mr. A. Mod, who are two of our, you know, longest but best volunteers. The youth one, a guy called Michael Sululu from Bungoma, he was actually shot accidentally and killed on the line of duty in Bungoma because there were riots. There's a truck that oil tank had fallen, and like many things, our young people say, haki yetu, guys were going to get to chota the oil very quickly. And this guy was trying to stop the crowd from going there, and with a Red Cross jacket. So I think the crowd became rowdy and the police were shooting, and a stray bullet hit this young man and he died on the spot. So in his memory, we have the Michael Sululu Youth Volunteer Award, and in memory of Mr. A. Molu, who was the longest serving volunteer, 66 years.
He's a lovely man.
So we have the A. Molu Award, which is the highest award we can offer to any of our volunteers. So, I mean, probably we can't give them enough, we can't thank them enough. So this recognition for us is what we believe, doing it in our branches, in our counties, in our provinces, and at a national level. I'm very happy that finally even the government here this year for the first time awarded volunteers from
That's
various
wonderful.
organizations.
Yeah, and they should be, because you know, when you give your time, it's sometimes more important than giving money.
Sure.
You know, because money is, you can write a check, you know, and there are not much thought goes into
And
it.
they're actually giving, if we look at in terms of finances, what they're giving in time and in services, is huge amount of money
Yeah, if
that we couldn't have afforded ourselves.
No, exactly.